So go ahead and close your eyes for a second and just picture a gamer. Like, bring up the very first image that pops into your mind. Let me guess, you are picturing a teenager, probably a guy hunched over a glowing monitor in a completely darkened bedroom, just entirely isolated from the outside world.
Yeah, I mean, that classic stereotype is just, it's practically burned into our collective pop culture consciousness at this point.
It really is. But today, we are taking a mental eraser to that image, like wipe it completely away. As the learner, your mission in this deep dive is to synthesize a massive, honestly eye-opening report titled From Niche to Global Stage, How Video Games Became a Defining Cultural Force.
And, you know, whether you're a hardcore competitive player or someone who honestly hasn't touched a joystick since you played Pac-Man in some pizza parlor decades ago, understanding this shift is just so crucial.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we're going to prove to you that video games have quietly become the most dominant cultural, economic, and technological force on the entire planet. They are actively rewiring modern entertainment. They're dictating high fashion, transforming education, and even forcing governments to rewrite national policies.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand how gaming influences culture, we have to understand the sheer, undeniable gravity of its economics.
Right, and the scale here requires us to just completely recalibrate how we measure the entertainment industry. I mean, we're looking at a global market valued at roughly $277 billion in 2025.
Wow.
Yeah, and projections show it hitting $542 billion by 2032. And you know, some predictive models even push that up to $593 billion.
I mean, just to put those figures in perspective for everyone listening, the global film industry, so that includes box office, streaming, home entertainment, everything that generates about $100 billion a year.
Right. And the entire global music industry sits at roughly $30 billion. So if we look at those numbers, gaming is basically this digital Pac-Man that has completely swallowed the global film and music industries combined.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is still hungry. I mean, in 2025, just the mobile in-app purchases segment alone was projected to hit $130 billion globally. Like, China alone has 683 million active gamers.
Which is just staggering when you think about it.
Right. That's nearly half of their entire population, generating over 350 billion yuan in a single year. But I want to pause here for a second, because we always hear about this gaming boom, but aren't these massive numbers just artificially inflated by casual mobile games, like people tapping on digital candy while they wait for the bus? Does someone playing a puzzle game on their phone really count as part of this revolution?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it simply doesn't matter how people play anymore. Yeah, mobile, console, high-end PC, they have all bled into this exact same global ecosystem. What matters is the shared behavior. I mean, more than 8 out of 10 internet users globally, aged 16 to 44, are engaging with these digital worlds. They all speak this shared digital language. And that demographic reality completely shatters that old stereotype of the isolated teenager you brought up earlier. While 90% of young people do play, the average age of a video game player today is actually 41 years old.
Wait, really? 41? So the average gamer is solidly middle-aged.
Exactly. In the US, the average sits right in that 35 to 44 age bracket. And get this, 22% of global respondents in recent surveys are actually over the age of 65.
Oh, wow. So grandparent gamers are a massive demographic.
They really are. And the gender divide has basically vanished too. Women make up somewhere between 48 to 51% of all players now.
That reframes everything.
It does. And the reason this matters, the real why behind this economic explosion, is generational. The kids who grew up with the original Sega and Nintendo consoles in the 80s and 90s, they just never stopped playing. They brought gaming into middle age.
Right. So the purchasing power driving this industry shifted from kids spending their allowance to, like, adults with serious disposable income.
Precisely. They're the ones buying the hardware, paying for the subscriptions, and driving that massive revenue.
Okay, so because that audience is so vast and financially powerful, the way we consume gaming naturally had to evolve, right? It went from this solo activity on your living room couch to a massive global spectator sport. I mean, look at the esports scale. The 2025 League of Legends World Championship final that was T1 versus KT Rolster hit 6.75 million peak concurrent viewers.
Which rivals traditional sports finals.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Esports World Cup held in Riyadh, that single event pulled in 750 million global viewers.
750 million.
Yeah, and they had 2,000 superfans who traveled internationally just to attend in person.
That is insane.
In the third quarter of 2025 alone, we saw a record 9.6 billion hours watched across live streaming platforms. Twitch, YouTube Gaming, Kick-In. They are effectively the new ESPN for an entire generation.
But help me out here. Let's play devil's advocate for a second. If the average gamer is 41 years old, are middle-aged adults really the ones packing into stadiums to watch teenagers play League of Legends? Or watching streamers online for billions of hours?
That is a great question, and it points to a fascinating demographic split between the player and the viewer.
Okay.
While the 40-somethings are driving the actual revenue through software and hardware purchases, those massive viewership numbers for live streams and esports that's driven heavily by Gen Z and Gen Alpha. For those younger demographics, gaming is basically their primary social network.
Interesting. But I still hear people ask this all the time. Why watch someone else play a video game when you could just play it yourself?
Right, the classic question.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. It comes down to the real-time intimacy of streaming. Think about traditional Hollywood celebrities, right? When you watch an actor on a screen, there is this invisible wall between you and them.
Like a one-way street.
Exactly. It's like actors on a theater stage. You sit in the dark and watch. But a live stream on Twitch is a town square. If you are watching a star like Pokimane or an influencer like IShowSpeed, who, by the way, Rolling Stone named the most influential creator in the world in 2025, you can type a message in the chat and they might actually read it and respond to you instantly, live, in front of millions of people.
And that parasocial intimacy builds a level of loyalty that traditional media simply cannot manufacture anymore.
Definitely.
These digital influencers, people like Ninja or legendary esports stars like Faker from T1 or Alexis Gorassi, they are the new household names. Whole esports organizations like Gen G are pulling in 118 million hours of watch time a year.
Which is just a staggering amount of human attention.
Yeah. It is. And the scale of this attention economy has actually forced governments to step in and grant legitimacy.
Oh, right, like India making it an official sport.
Yes. In 2025, India passed the Online Gaming Bill, recognizing esports under their National Sports Governance Act, complete with actual cash incentives for athletes. And it's not just India. Indonesia, Pakistan, and Mongolia, who officially threw government support behind their national team, the Mongol Z, they have all formed national esports federations.
So it's about real governmental recognition.
Exactly. It's not just about trophies. It provides crucial legal architecture. It means these players can get international sports visas to travel, they get worker protections, state funding, career legitimacy. It is absolute proof that platforms like Twitch are the new ESPN and traditional networks are losing ground.
Right. And because these audiences are so massive and so deeply invested, gaming's aesthetic has completely burst out of the screen. It is actively colonizing traditional pop culture. Look at high fashion. We were seeing luxury brands leaning all the way in. Louis Vuitton collaborating with League of Legends.
Yeah, the Balenciaga collaborations too.
Oh, yeah. And Ralph Lauren giving its iconic logo a whole Fortnite makeover.
And it scales right down to mainstream streetwear. Burberry and NYX Cosmetics ran massive partnerships with Minecraft. Analysts even tracked this huge wave of digital nostalgia and fashion that was sparked entirely by the visual language of the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
So why do they care so much? I mean, beyond the fact that it's a huge market.
Well, back in 2024, it was already a $180 billion market. But the real reason luxury brands care is that young demographics are incredibly ad blind today. They don't watch traditional TV. They use ad blockers everywhere online. So weaving your brand directly into the digital world they already inhabit is really the only reliable way to capture their attention.
That makes total sense. And Hollywood is basically running the same playbook with this transmedia revolution. We saw adaptations like The Last of Us and Arcane, proving that games have the artistic merit of elite literature or film.
Oh, absolutely. They swept award shows.
Yeah. I mean, people compare this IP strategy to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but honestly, it's much deeper than that.
How so?
Because gaming allows you to enact the story rather than just watch it. Like in a movie, you watch the hero make a terrible choice. But in a game, you are the hero. You hold the controller. You make the choice, so the emotional weight entirely belongs to you.
And academic research backs that up. Enacting a narrative is a far more potent form of cultural transmission than just observing one. So transmedia isn't just cross-promotion anymore.
Right, it's not just slapping a logo on a lunchbox.
Exactly. It's a seamless ecosystem where stories just flow fluidly across mediums. It moves from a playable game to an HBO series or to a symphony orchestra playing original scores by composers like Jesper Kyd and Lena Raine.
Or massive virtual concerts in Fortnite, like when Travis Scott or Ariana Grande performed, and millions of players attended simultaneously as digital avatars.
That's all connected now.
It really is. But I want to pivot slightly, because all this time spent immersed in these digital spaces isn't just changing what we wear or watch, it's actually physically altering our brains, right? We need to talk about the light side of gaming.
Yes, the neurological impact. The science here is just completely overturning decades of assumptions.
So what does this all mean? Can we finally officially tell our parents, or if you're listening, can you tell your kids that playing video games is basically brain food?
Well, look, the scientific community is clear that excessive gaming can still present behavioral issues. Moderation is key. But the light side of gaming is a booming scientific field. There was a recent study published in Nature Communications that explored the mental health impacts of gaming, and they linked playing video games to younger, healthier brain activity.
Younger brain activity, how does it work?
It comes down to brain plasticity, which is simply the brain's ability to rewire itself and build new neural pathways. As we age, our spatial awareness and cognitive flexibility naturally degrade, but navigating complex 3D digital environments acts as a form of resistance training for your brain.
Oh, like taking your brain to the gym.
Exactly. It boosts executive functions and actively reduces cognitive decline. And it's not just high-action Twitch reflex games doing this. The sources mention immense therapeutic value in art-based games, too.
Right. There was that coloring game called Chicory.
Yes, Chicory. Researchers showed it actively reduces loneliness and anxiety, while drawing games increase emotional control.
That's incredible. And it extends into education and physical wellness, too. There's a definitive positive correlation between gaming and STEM success. And surprisingly, the data shows digital learning games are incredibly effective for female students in particular.
Yeah, and physically you have Northern Arizona University developing Health Quest, which uses physical totems linked to gameplay to teach wellness. And even in medicine, augmented reality applications are changing surgery.
Oh yeah, AR in surgery.
Surgeons are using AR glasses that overlay a digital heads-up display, literally like a video game interface, projecting a patient's vital signs and 3D scans directly onto their field of vision during procedures.
It is wild how this tech is bleeding into reality.
It is, and this raises an important question regarding how we structure our educational systems moving forward. Because video games inherently offer adaptive challenges. They give instant feedback, and they provide a safe space to fail and try again.
Which traditional classrooms completely lack, right? They rely on rote memorization and normalize failure.
Exactly. So perhaps the classroom of the future needs to look a lot more like a video game.
Man, if games are already capable of reshaping how we learn and physically altering our brain chemistry, what happens when we push the technology even further? Let's look at the horizon. I want to talk about artificial intelligence and the metaverse.
Well, by mid-2025, generative AI basically became the foundational operating layer of game development.
Right.
Historically, an artist had to manually draw every single tree, and a writer had to script every line of dialogue. But now we are seeing procedurally generated worlds that literally never repeat. You have AI-driven characters that possess distinct personalities, converse naturally, and react dynamically to you in real time.
And the hardware is shifting just as fast. At CES 2026, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang laid out this vision for neural rendering, which sounds like sci-fi.
It kind of is.
Right, but just to be clear, how does neural rendering actually differ from traditional graphics?
So traditional graphics rely on brute force GPU power to mathematically calculate how light bounces off every single polygon. It is hugely resource intensive.
Okay.
Neural rendering bypasses that entirely. It uses AI to essentially hallucinate or generate the graphics instantly without calculating the actual physics. It allows for photorealistic environments using just a fraction of the computing power.
Which naturally leads us to the biggest buzzword of the last few years, the metaverse. And the economics here are wild. It's projected to reach $416.9 billion by 2032.
Growing at a 38.53% compound annual rate.
Yeah, but I have to push back here. I have to challenge the hype. Because we have heard the word metaverse thrown around forever. Is it actually a new frontier? Or is it just a corporate buzzword for playing Fortnite with a VR headset.
The skepticism is totally fair, but the reality is much more profound than just immersive graphics. It's the convergence of AI, cloud tech, and Web3 economics. Platforms like Metaverse are introducing real-world asset ownership.
Meaning you actually own the digital item.
Right. You own the underlying code. You can buy a virtual asset and sell it for real money. We are building persistent virtual economies where people socialize, build, and earn real value.
And the barrier to entry is just dissolving. The BCG 2026 video gaming report noted that the console wars are effectively dying out because of cloud gaming convergence.
Which is huge.
Yeah, it makes high-end games accessible on basically any internet-connected device. The supercomputer, miles away, does the heavy lifting and streams it to your phone. Plus, with the explosion of user-generated content, or UGC, players are building and monetizing their own spaces.
It's total democratization.
Right.
Soon, anyone with a phone will be able to not just access, but actually create photorealistic, AI-driven worlds.
Incredible. Well, that brings us to the end of an amazing journey. Let's just briefly recap what we covered today. We started by taking that mental eraser to the stereotype of the lonely teenager in the dark.
Yep, completely wiped it out.
And in its place, we uncovered a $500+ billion economic titan, driven largely by adults in their 40s making microtransactions. We saw how live streaming packed massive stadiums and forced governments to step up.
We looked at the transmedia revolution in fashion and Hollywood.
Right, and how it's literally healing aging brains and rewiring education. And finally, we looked at how AI and cloud convergence are pioneering this next era of Web3. So if you're listening, whether you're prepping for a marketing meeting or trying to connect with your kids or just trying to understand the modern economy, ignoring video games is simply no longer an option. It is the defining cultural language of the 21st century.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to leave everyone with one final kind of unexplored thread to mull over.
Oh, lay it on me.
We've spent all this time discussing how AI can now generate infinitely complex, personalized worlds, right?
Yeah.
And neural rendering is making them visually indistinguishable from reality.
Okay.
So if this continues, will future generations view our physical world not as the ultimate reality, but simply as the original unmoddable base game?
Oh, man, that is a heavy thought to walk away with. What happens when reality is just the unmoddable starting point?
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning the world around you, and we will get you next time.